Theron Sarna, everyone. Let us start the class by chanting Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahatu Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahatu Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahatu Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. So do we have any questions before we move on to the last part of discussing the contemplation on the Indriya Bhavanas? After reflecting upon what we discussed last time, and even on Saturday with regards to the Upekha, do we have any questions that you would like to ask? Guess not. All right, so we'll start, and if there are any later on, then we can come back to it. Okay. So today, what is remaining, or what we are supposed to discuss today, is with regards to, we discussed the practice of what the Indriyas are, what the object is, how the contact comes about, where the contemplation happens, and how and what the contemplation is, right? The contemplation is of 4 types, right? Or rather, the contemplation is namely 4, which is the Sankata, Olarika, Pachupanna, and Anicca, right? And what we are to do today is to go over the contemplations, right? Is to go over the contemplations. Now, what is Sankata? What is Sankata? Sankata is translated as conditioned. Sankata is translated as conditioned. But what does Sankata essentially mean, right? And how can we go deeper into the Sankata? Now, Sankata is the fact that the phenomena, as we observe the phenomena, and whatever phenomena which is present, it is constructed, right, in a sense that they appear and cease. They momentarily appear and cease. That is not all. Momentarily arise and cease. It is important to note that the phenomena is constructed in such a manner, brought together in such a manner that it arises and ceases. Do you understand? There is a difference if we do not use the word constructed. Is that clear, everyone? It is constructed to arise and cease momentarily, or momentarily arises and ceases. That is one. The other is, it is dependent on causes and effect. It is dependent on cause and effects. The third being that it is in an endless cycle that does not cease. It arises all what it is. It is potentially in this ceaseless cycle that arises. Do you understand? Those three. First, being momentarily, it is constructed in a sense that it momentarily arises and ceases. You see, it is dependent upon causes and effect, and it is in a potentially ceaseless cycle. Ceaseless cycle, right? Now, when we say or refer, or what we refer to as Sankata, is everything but nirvana. Everything but nirvana is Sankata, right? Everything but nirvana is Sankata. Now, when we refer, when we know from a meditator's perspective, as we observe, and at times when the thought that might appear is, let us say, a thought which is distracting, right? And not only is it distracting, it is engulfing, right? Let us say it is of a greed root or of a hatred root. It is so engulfing that we forget that we are meditating altogether. Yeah, it overwhelms, it saturates. Now, at a time like this, when the mere memory of it just simply brings out this sort of saturated feel of the mind, upon bringing to mind, this is conditioned. Meka sankatai. Do you understand? It breaks the solidity that the emotions, that the kilesas had before, by bringing in the contemplation of sankata. It breaks it apart. Now, when we refer, or when we look at the mind at the time of meditation, what we are looking at is now first we would have the sense, we would have the Indriya, isn't it? Right? First, we would have the sense door, right? The sense door. That would first arise, or here we would refer it to as a sense organ, right? With the sense organ, right, there is also the sense object, which is form, sound, taste. Now, with the sense object, then what do we have? Right? Well, what follows afterwards? It is the vinyana, chakku vinyana, sota vinyana, gana vinyana. So then we would have the sense consciousness. Right? This forms the sense experience, right? This is a sense experience. How does the sense experience arise? How does the sense experience arise? Sense experience arises when there is contact between the sense organ, sense object, and sense consciousness. When there is contact between these three, the sense experience arises. The sense experience arises, right? Now, the sense experience, if we are to say, this is just continuing from the notes before, right? So if we are to say this box here, this is the first that happens. The sense experience that comes from here, this is the second that happens. Hari? Now, please tell me, everyone, can we control the sense number one, part one?
Bhante, we can't control, Bhante.
We can't control.
It's automatically happen.
As well.
Then you don't have a sense organ.
Okay.
So once you so that means it's actually in Pali it's called Chakkuncha Paticca Rupecha. That means when you have a sense organ meet the sense object,
Yeah.
then the consciousness comes.
Hari. Now, right, okay. So you can't control one, okay? You can't control one. One will arise as long as the material organ is present and then the conditions are present, one will arise. Can two be controlled? Can't hear.
That also can't. That's also happens.
Bhante,
I think.
yeah.
Yes.
Can I ask that question? What I wanted actually, is it happening locally or it's happening in the mind?
Don't go there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we are going to
We are too far. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Anything, anyone else?
Bhante, maybe you can control number one because if there's an undesirable thing that we don't want to see, you can look away so that you can control number one.
Hari. So let us say, then now there is something undesirable that I'm seeing on the monitor. I close my eyes, right? And now I'm seeing my hand, right? I close the lids. I'm seeing the shadow of the light, right? Do you understand? I don't want to hear someone saying something, so I put on my earphones and listen to something else. Now I'm not hearing that, but I'm hearing something else. Do you get what I mean? So the sense that we are experiencing here, right? This is talked about at any given moment in time. The sense organ, sense object, and sense consciousness, when there's an impingement, it will arise. Right? It will arise. Maybe we can distance ourselves from a particular object, right? That is sure. But the thing is, we are not referring to a specific object. We are referring to simple impingement that happens across all indriyas, right? That happens across all indriyas. Is that clear, everyone? Okay. So now, one. Yes, lettuce. Yes, lettuce. Your hand is up. Cannot hear you speak. Is that a mistake? Okay. Right.
Sorry, I didn't unmute. So I thought the Dvipancha Vinyanas are resultant Vipaka Chittas. And I read in our textbook, I think, that you are presented with a desirable object, if it is wholesome resultant, or an undesirable object, if it is the unwholesome one. So I don't think you can change the object.
Yes. Otobota, thank you, Lettice, for bringing that up. Right now, let us discuss that ancillary bit of information there. Now, what Lettice mentioned is with regards to the kusala, akusala, ahetuka, chitta, vipaka. Isn't it, everyone? Everyone follows? Where does that affect? Where does that arise? Come on, you have to. Yes, Hemali?
Bhante, is it with the Vedana?
No.
No.
With the consciousness, Bhante.
Right.
Whatever the consciousness.
Or Sanya, Bhante. Sorry. With Sanya?
Well, sense consciousness is chakusota. Yeah. This one. Right. But here the passa, everyone, the passa, if we are to put it into a visual representation, right, then it would have to be, and then there is contact between the three. Right now, because you see sense organ, sense consciousness, and sense object. Let's take the kusala. Let us take the kusala ahetuka vipaka. Right, chakku vinyana kusala ahetuka vipaka. I mean, kusala ahetuka decide chakku vinyana kusala. Right, chakku vinyana kusala. You will see something which is pleasant. Okay. You will see something which is pleasant, right? But that is not the only thing that it is going to negate, right? The other thing that it negates is the operation of the organ. Yeah, remember that, everyone? The prasada rupa activates the supporting energy for the prasada rupa to take the object or to have the object, to bear the object, is also the sense consciousness. Isn't it, everyone? Right? So then the sense organ arises upon that connected energy of the organ and the consciousness. Yeah? Is that clear? So it is not only the pleasant part of it, right? So coming back, let us does that answer your question, Lettice?
I didn't understand, Bhante, what you meant.
Okay. Could you repeat the question?
The resultant chittas are the vipaka chittas.
Sorry.
So in our textbook, it says, you are presented with a desirable object if it's a wholesome vipaka. Or if it is unwholesome, it's an undesirable object.
Yeah.
So I thought it's already determined, predetermined what you see.
Okay. Okay, got it. All right, thank you, Lettice. I will explain that also. Right. Now, when it comes to kusala and akusala, right, the meme kim kusala hetuwa padanam karagana yam kisi honda darshana kapade dakinna hambenawa. We come to see a good visual. However, because of the dittis in our mind, we are unable to enjoy that good. Right now, for example, how many people haven't visited? I have come across people who might say, the Rwanda desire is a waste of natural resources, right? Because you could break that down, take the brick and make so many houses for the homeless, right? So I've literally do hear people saying stuff like that, even with regards to Burma, because there's so much of gold at Shredagom Pagoda, people would comment and say the same, right? Now see, etana, now the beauty that is witnessed is witnessed as a result of the ahetuka kusala. Does not mean that you think the same. Does not mean that you think the same, right? Now, for example, let us take a dog, right? And excrement, right? Excrement. Now to the dog, I don't know, but maybe not all dogs, but some dogs might take this as a pleasurable object, right? However, it is a akusala vipaka, ahetuka. Akusala vipaka, ahetuka. However, the dog, depending on the dog, would take it as a pleasant or unpleasant. The ahetuka consciousness and what the nature of the ahetuka consciousness does not predetermine the thought and the way that object would be processed. Is that understood? Right? So then what would categorize the object, or what gives us the ability of saying that this is a pleasant or this is an unpleasant thing with regards to the ahetuka objects or ahetuka consciousnesses that would arise with respective objects? That would come down to their intrinsic feel, to their intrinsic feel, intrinsic nature, rather than what we would consider with dittis or anything of the sort. Does that make sense?
Bhante,
Yes.
now if you take a fanatic, religious fanatics of non-Buddhist fanatics, when he see a Buddhist statue, he will have a unpleasant thing, right? And when we see a Buddhist statue, and in practice we see that actually they destroy Buddhist statues because of that in certain countries. And when we see Buddhist statues, then we have different sort of reactions or the feeling. No, I think that's mainly because of the sanya, the perception we have, and the perception that particular person has. Even though Buddhist statue is intrinsically probably it's sort of favorable object, and become unfavorable completely because of the sanya. Right? Am I correct?
Well, when the sanya comes in, it has gone beyond a certain process. That's the problem. Right? Now, when the sanya comes in, the sanya appears at a certain point in the process which arises after the sense object has already arisen. Right? Now, with regards to the fanatics and the destruction of the Buddha statues, the fanatics and the destruction of the Buddha statues would happen because of the dittis that they would specifically hold, right? Which goes against their own. Maybe the Buddha statue or seeing a Buddha statue would sort of go against their own. Hence, the destruction of the Buddha statue. Now, that is ditti, right? Which is coming in there. However, if you would take even in a non-Buddhist world or within non-Buddhist persons, how many Buddha statues would we see in spas across the UK? Right? How many Buddha statues would we see? I mean, as garden ornaments, and all of these other things. The intrinsic, the calming effects of the Buddha statue, the way the Buddha statues are, of course, it is a religious artifact, but it also is seen for the pleasant virtues that that form has. Right? Now, this is not to then sort of say, මේ සියල්ලම අපිට එකින් එක කුසලද අකුසල විපාකද කියලා මේක විශ්ලේෂණය කරන්න කතාවකුත් නෙමෙයි මෙතන තියෙන්නේ. Right? එහෙම කරන්න ගියොත් අපිට ඒක we won't be able to finish. Right? But here, what it simply says is with regards to kusala and akusala ahetaka vipaka, what happens is in the kusala, within the kusala vipaka, the object that is cognized has the ability or has the intrinsic nature of being able to bring about pleasantness. That pleasantness can be hindered by ditti, mana, thana, all of these things. Yes, but that happens later on. That happens in number 2, actually. Right? The akusala vipaka has the ability, the object of that nature has the intrinsic potential of bringing about pain or suffering or something not in the sort of the ultimate end of experience, but even in a subtle manner has the ability of bringing about a sense of agitation and discomfort. Yes, Damsari. But
Bhante, if you consider the Madhupindika Sutra, and it says, of course, Tinnang Sangati Passo, Passa Pachya Vedana. Okay. Now, at this moment, we don't know whether it's favorable, unfavorable, or pleasant or unpleasant. Then, Tang Vedeti, Tang Sanyanati. Then comes the Sanya. Yang Sanyanati, Tang Vitaketi. You have to actually keep on thinking about it. Then only the Papancha comes. Right? Papancha comes with the definition of whether it is favorable or unfavorable, or pleasant or unpleasant. So according to Madhupindika, this Sanya takes major role in defining which way the object is going.
Definitely.
Whether it is unfavorable or favorable.
That's the thing, Damsari. We are not talking about the pathway of the object.
Okay.
Ahetuka does not talk about the pathway of the object. It is talking about the intrinsic nature of the object that is cognized by the organ. We don't know anything about it as yet.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Right. So Ahetuka would only then affect letters. Ahetuka would only affect this position here. Right? This position here. Now, the what we discussed, Dil, your hand is up. Yes.
No. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Before this, Bhante, when you've been explaining these examples of dog excrement and Buddha statues and all have come in. So when we say it's the intrinsic nature of the object, so do we go like, say an offensive fruit or something like that, like the durian? The smell is offensive, but some people really like it. So that's a ditty. So because you like it, but that smell or excrement, but then a fruit which is nutritious is not intrinsically bad. So what really determines the intrinsic nature? Because since sense consciousness and perception and the experience comes later, and it's at this point of sense object that the intrinsic nature, what really determines that? And Lettice was talking about it indeed predetermined. So I'm just wondering, how does one know what the intrinsic nature of something is? It's offensive, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Good question. With regard to when we take ahetuka, ahetukas are directly relating to karma vipaka, right? Now let us say the beauty of the Buddha. The Buddha is said to be a person of significant beauty, right? Now, when we study the Lakkana Sutra and the Mahapadana Sutra, it is also a little bit odd. Why? Because 2,600 years ago, the beauty standards do not fit our standards today. So if the Buddha was to be born in 2023, right, his beauty would be actually different. Same Mahapurusa Lakkana, but the Mahapurusa Lakkanas would be manifested in a different way, suiting what? Suiting the beauty standards of 2023. Now, who negates the beauty standards of 2023? The world. What is seen as most pleasant, favorable, beautiful of this time? That is what would determine the karmas that bring about that change of kaya for the Buddha, should he have been born in this part of the 21st century. In the same manner, dear, in the same manner, what determines if a certain thing, karmic effect, no, this is karma palaniya here. This is not to do with sanya at this moment. This is to do with karma palaniya, right? The law of karma. The law of karma would adhere to the waves and energies of the world at that time that it gives rise. At that time that it gives rise, right? Now, if let us say within our karmas, we have the good fortune, karma, to eat the most nourishing food, right? As a result of our karma, as a result of us having given nourishing food to others, we have the good karma of eating such food during our lifetime. What happens? The food would alter to the time that it gives result, right? In the same manner, in the world, with the world energy, at this present moment, in our environment and the world that we live in specifically, what is socially considered karmically, because all of this is energy in that sense, as pleasant and unpleasant, that is what the ahetuka kusala and ahetuka akusala would represent or manifest.
Bhante, then if you look at the world, I understand what you say and it makes perfect sense. Now, at the world, white color skin is considered to be very much more better than being brown or black. And this whole divisive nature of the north-south divide and everything is because some countries, they want to keep this white. In the world, the general thing is that even if you go, there is subtle racism everywhere.
Sure.
So then if we are, but we think we are very fortunate to be born in Sri Lanka and to be born in whatever brown or whatever. And I'm sure the Africans may think likewise. I don't know, that having this curly hair.
Sure, sure. Dil, let us move on from the physical part, please. Yes.
Right.
Got
So no, but that is also the word sense, Bhante.
yes.
So would it be okay to be born Asian? We think it's good, right? Forget that, right? So but then certain things is also, if you look at dog excrement, it's the physical and everything about it that is disgusting to most people. So that's why it is. So I mean, this leaves open to if the majority of people at the time in the world think that something is better than the other, then, and because now the world is so interconnected, you know, when the time of the Buddha, there was no internet, people didn't know what and what people look like, they never went by plane. But now everybody knows everything. So if a group of people think they're superior because of whatever reason, then would that determine, I know that's a view, but I still find it a bit difficult to see what exactly, to see the Buddha's physical characteristics you said would have changed, right? So that is the physical characteristics that's changing. So I think it's difficult to really pinpoint when you look at these things, the exact point where it is coming, because it's.
Yes, just because a certain group of people would determine it does not mean that it will affect the whole entirety of the world. One. Two, karma does not give rise on a single phase. So just because, let us say, we have the karmas of being born with good looks, blessed with good looks, good genetics, and all of these other things, right? Which would make us appealing to the world, right? Now, does not mean that it will trump everything else that is important to us. Right. Now, there might be certain things, values, culture, identity, things that we consider a part of us that would also play a role and part in the places that we are born and the countries or locations to which we are born. Right. It is not defined by just one thing. Right, it would be defined by a variety of energies, but yes, the beauty and the appearance of the Buddha would have changed if the Buddha was to be born in 2023. That is for sure, without a shred of doubt. I can appear to that, I can say that, right? Because the standards of beauty are different from 2,600 years ago. The standards of beauty are different, right? There was a time when the world saw sort of the six packs as a sign of poverty because people couldn't feed themselves, where they saw that it was far more attractive to be big made, right? Now, these standards would change. Karmaniya, the way that it would give rise, is the energy and the focus of the world. Now, if you take a look at what is going on in the world at the moment, you find in the Sutta Surya, in the Agana Sutras, what they say with regards to the way that people start thinking, their perversions of mind, that starts happening. You see the sort of the shreds of it now building up right here, right now, especially with the Balenciaga controversies that are going on with the child trafficking and child abuse that is happening, right? And how, for example, with the internet, one of the driving forces of tech development in the world, the development of the internet itself was what? It was pornography, right? The thing is, we find with what the Buddha says in the Agana Sutra about the perversions of people nearing to the time of the end of the world, we find those sort of segments now. These karmas will form. The thing is, it's not determined by a group of people. It has to be the norm, right? And with time, certain behaviors and behavioral changes, it will become the norm, right? That norm will come at what position, right? As karma resultant, it will arise here, right? Kusala and akusala, ahetuka karma, right? Ahetuka karma. Now I'm going to edit this chart out a bit, right? I'm going to edit this chart out a bit to make it a little bit more clearer, right? Make the arrows a bit longer. Now, everyone, when the sense experience takes, when this when Phassa arises here, right? This all happens through Phassa. When Phassa arises here, between the three organ, object, and the consciousness, there would arise, as a result of this, there would arise the sense experience. However, this Phassa, to reach this state from this box number 1 to 2, it is not direct. If it is direct, then this one itself would be the sense experience, which it is not. Right? The sense experience, to form the sense experience, it has to go through sanya. Right? This part here. And what is sanya? In this sense, the mano dwara vajana, right? How the yonso, ayonso, mansikara, how we construct the world. The way we construct the world is number 2. That is the sense experience, everyone. Please understand that one, that bit. The sense experience, number 2, is a construct. Ekai, this sense experience, this sanya here is dependent on habits, upbringing, beliefs, practice, training, samadhi, values. All of these things would determine how this number 1, the interaction, the phassa, comes to the sense experience, which is sankata. Then what is sankata, everyone? This is sankata. Do you understand? Say KHA, sankata. That handwriting. Let me write that again. Sorry. Sankata. Is that clear? That is sankata, everyone. Right? This is sankata.
So to explain sankata means it's composite, that it's made of several parts. Is that what sankata?
Absolutely correct. However, what we know of the mind is, that the mind can take one thing as an object at a time, right? The further explanations of it, while it can come afterwards, what are we adverting to as sankata? We are adverting to the sense experience. This sense experience, remember, last time when we said, where did we say? Here, this part here. This is a sense experience. Now we are giving it far more, how would we say, a bit of a method to the madness, really. From this to now really looking at how this phassa between the sense organ, sense object, and sense consciousness would arise, and how that, when it goes through what is the sanya being yonso and ayonso mansikara, what would happen? That would create the sense experience. What is then sankata? The sense experience is a construct. That construct is what we see as sankata. Right? The repeated adverting towards a sense experience as sankata is what within the Indriya Bhavana the practice becomes. Is that clear? Is that clear? This is a construct. How we would define or how we would arrive at this sense experience, how we would arrive at this sense experience, everyone, will determine whether we are living within the Laukika Bhumi, the Lokotara Bhumi, whether we are within the path of practice, whether we are not, whether we are cultivating parami, whether we are cultivating kusala, akusala, all of that would be determined by this process which comes through the one to the two, through the sanya yonismanskara. I think as we go on studying, dwelling deeper into these topics, we realize how important Yoniso Mansikara is, ned everyone. Yoniso Mansikara is so important. Yeah, we find it to be the only thing that can drive this ship properly. Yoniso Mansikara. Any questions? Now that is only Sankata. Damsiri, you want to say something?
Not really, but because you asked me, okay, I'm still not very clear about how you define the intrinsic nature of the object. I think it's again this personal part of it also, and then social part of as well, right? Now, 2,500 years ago, the intrinsic nature of certain things are different from today.
Yeah.
So the main reason is because the society has changed and individuality has also changed, our thinking pattern and things like that. So when it comes to, when we define the intrinsic nature, it is actually combination of these social and individual basis that we have to consider. Do you think that has got, or it is not sort of a fixed thing that we are talking about? It is a sort of a continuously upgrading thing as time goes.
Most definitely. I think it will update moment to moment. I mean, we live in a world where things change. You know, Britain, 5 years ago, Britain is not 5 years ago, Britain today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
5 years ago, Britain was far more pleasant to live in than Britain today. Right. It definitely is. Sri Lanka 5 years ago and Sri Lanka today is very different.
Yeah.
Right. It will update on a daily, it can moment to moment.
Yeah.
Moment to moment. Then metana api ahetuka dharmyan wala damsiri api baluwot damsiri et al. Baluwot ahetuka dharmyan wala, what do we see? We see karma. Simply, there is nothing to do with our personal views and intentions, likes and dislikes. There's nothing to do with that, right? There's nothing to do with any of our personal. Basically, it only has the 7 universals. The bare minimum when it comes to the kusala and akusala ahetukas, right? Kusala and the ahetuka akusalas. That is all that it has. Now, the determination here within what karma is present is simply the karma itself. Now, this is all not present moment. It is past. Right? It is past. These past karmas will come up. These are also very weak karmas, right? Now, let us say a person, right? Let us say a person goes up, develops jhanas to such a high level, but travels up to the Brahma realms and sees the beauty and the pleasantries of the Brahma realms, right? So where does now he's seeing and experiencing the beauty of the Brahma realms? No. So we cannot say that he saw and experienced the Brahma realms because of the ahetuka chittas. No. However, the ahetuka chittas, because it is pleasant, what ahetuka karmas would come up? Only kusala. Do you understand? Right? Because within that essence, it is something which is wholesome. Right? Something which is wholesome. Now, if he goes to hell and witnesses the great fires and the scum of hell, right, that would intrinsically be of a unwholesome sort of demonic sort of nature and essence, right? That would be an akusala to see that side of things, right? Hence what happened, this is not to say that the akusala karma negates what we experience. No. The experience is that is supported, the seeing, the smelling, the tasting, the feel is supported by these ancillary small, minute, weak karmas known as ahetuka karmas. That's it. Right? There is not much, how weak these energies are. I mean, they don't have any solidity to stand on. They arise for just imagine the pancha vinyanas, they do not even have an essence over the determinations followed by the chitta following the pancha vinyana. Nothing. It's simply at that moment it energizes a pasada rupa. Right? What energizes a pasada rupa, what that energy is deemed as kusala or akusala. It has no determination possibility within that whole thing. Right? It is almost as simple or basic as a flat screw or a flower screw. Just that. The screw does the same thing. Right? Just that this is a flat screw or it has no other validity. It is that weak. Right? Where the object is of karma. Right? The object on that part, that object is experienced. We cannot say that we experience that object because of the ahetuka karma. No. That object might be experienced because of our present karmas, because of the decisions that we've made in our present life. It has nothing to do with the ahetukas. The ahetukas only have something to do with the functioning of the prasada rupa. Does that make sense? Right? Because it's that weak. It is that weak. Dil, does that make sense? Anyone else? Lettuce, you also asked the same.
But Bhante, throughout life, we rotate around all these objects, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Although they are weak, but they are the ones that we see all the time.
Well, no problem whatsoever. No problem whatsoever. Why? Because ahetukas only support the prasada rupas. They do not need to do anything else. Right? Depending upon those objects, we developed more karmas owing to what? The yonso and ayonso manasikara, the sanya that we put onto the object, which is then worked with the javanas. And then whether it's ati mahanta or mahanta or whatever it is, that is formulated afterwards. That is how weak ahetuka karmas are, everyone. Does that make sense, Lattice? We
Yes.
cling on to these objects later on. But all of this, remember, you're talking about something which simply affects this number one. At this point in time, we don't even know what this object that is. Yeah. The clinging or the hating, whatever happens at this sanya moment here, which forms a sense experience. Is that clear? The ahetuka, this blue part here, right? It has nothing to do with this part. It has nothing to do with this part. Neither has it anything to do with this part. No, it only has to do with this supporting of the organ through this consciousness that arises, which is the ahetuka chakku vinyana, sota vinana, gana, jivha, kaya vinyanas. Is that clear, everyone?
So Bhante, then so am I understanding this correctly? So the prasada rupa is the very intrinsic things. That's just a sense object. And so the sense consciousness is also that very interesting thing, which is the sota, gana, vinyana. So that is a very intrinsic thing. Now, it is sanna, which is the one that is going to affect on it. And you put here yoniso manasikara. So now some people, the perception sanna may be ayoniso manasikara.
Yeah.
So therefore, this sanna can get affected by yoniso or ayoniso manasikara.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So depending on that would be your sense experience, which is composite. Because now, whether your mind is just prutagnana or then your manasikara will be different, or whether you're higher up in the sainthoods, then it will be much higher up. So therefore, that is very important, that the yoniso or the ayoniso or the sanna is what is going to depend on, we call the sense experience, which is now it's composite, because now other factors have come in to this intrinsic things. Your wise attention, no unwise attention has now been incorporated. Now it has become a much more complex sankata.
Yeah. The wise attention, the unwise attention, the mansikara here, the main attributes of the mansikara, because I mean, it can be a person who is not a Buddhist as well, no, even a Buddhist, but no the sense of requirement to attain nirvana or to be a practicing Buddhist, whatever. Right? Can be any being. For any yonso and ayonso mansikara would mean, does this experience bring burden, pain, and suffering into my life? Does this experience bring a sense of lightness, bring a sense of happiness, pleasantness into my life? Yeah.
So in other words, are you on the path to shortening your samsara?
Doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be.
Right.
That's what we're saying. So how, because someone may ask, dear, right now I have no inclinations. I am a Buddhist. I have no inclinations of attaining nirvana. I just want to live a good life. Does that mean that I do not experience yoniso manasikara, that I only experience ayoniso manasikara? That might be something that is asked. Yoniso manasikara. So if we are to generally define yoniso and ayoniso manasikara to everyone, that is what I just mentioned, which is yoniso manasikara will bring that sense of lightness into your life, happiness into your life, a sense of fulfillment into your life, kusalagami. Ayoniso manasikara will bring burden, pain, suffering, plight, entrapment into your life. Right? That is what we feel when we take, let us take lobha, right? Lobha has within it a sense of entrapment, isn't it? It's not a freeing feeling, it's not a liberating feeling, right? When we experience our mind and focus wholly brought upon and being within hogging one specific object, hate, we find ourselves escaped with this, we find ourselves within this pain with a certain object, a person it can be, or an instance, an environment, right? We find those elements. So that is ayoniso, yoniso. Yeah.
So Bhante, therefore for yoniso, we can say light, pleasant, happiness, fulfillment, and a sense of freedom as well. Free.
Everything to do, that is why I mentioned the word kusalagami.
Right.
Kusalagami. Kusalagami, because kusala represents all of those words. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
Does that make sense?
Bhante, another question actually. You say sense experience,
Mm.
and in this sense experience, it can be favorable, unfavorable, or neutral,
Yeah.
right? But the Yonisko Maniskara will try to push the selection more towards neutral,
Mm.
because neither favorable or no unfavorable, which will give rise to either kamaraga or anger. What is that?
Those are,
Patiga. Patiga. Oh, yeah,
patiga.
patiga.
Mm.
So in reality, Yoniso Manskara will try to push this sense experience towards neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, well,
Yeah.
Yoniso Manskara doesn't always have to be neutral. That is one,
Okay.
right? But what you mentioned is absolutely true. Other than that neutral fact,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Other than the neutral, everything else was true, right? Because Yoniso Mansikara, it doesn't necessarily have to be neutral. It can be a very pleasant object. For example, dharme kerhi kamayak ඇති වෙනුට. Dharma kama, right?
Yeah.
Dharme kerhi kamayak ඇති වෙනුට, right? That is the sheer bliss and the love and the grace and gratitude towards the Dhamma. That is nothing to do with neutrality. That has everything to do with happiness.
Bhante, is it the Niramisa Preeti?
Yeah.
Niramisa Sukha.
Yes, Niramisa Sukha.
Namsari, if you stop asking questions for a little bit, I will have Niramita Sukha. Just kidding. So I think an alteration here is required. We have to move this Yonsu Mansikara down here, right? To symbolify that this Yonsu Mansikara, the sense experience, right? With Yonsuma, now the sense experience we create, right? Now we had to talk about the Bhavana, no? Right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is why we have to move this here. Now let us say if it is an Arahant, then we could have kept it entirely here, right? Because if it was a non-Pratujjana, if it was an enlightened being, then his mind would just simply work on Yonsu Mansikara. But to make it onto a practitioner's perspective, let us move it down here, right? Now, this Sankata that we are relating to here, right? This Sankata that we are relating to here is, right, seen through Yonsu Mansikara, towards a sense object. Seen through Yonsu Mansikara towards a sense object. Does that make sense? Right? The sanya, this sanya, we will say here, habit, mental conditioning. අපේ මනස දුවන විදියක් තියෙනවනේ, right? We have attributes of mind that we are comfortable with. Attributes of mind are temperaments and all of these things, right? Now that is what would drive that sanya at that moment, right? Yonso Mansikara because it has more to do with a sense of awakening and present awareness, this mansikara would then be the bhavana here. What? To see the sankata, metanta tava enama, sankata, I will put it on the same color, olarika, anicca, pachupanna. All of that comes to the yonsu mansikara here, which is attributed, everyone. The important part to note is the mansikara is impinged by the sense or towards the sense experience, not this one here, not one but two. Is that clear?
Bhante,
Yeah.
when you say pachupanna, I think you meant by it's pachupanna, it's paticca samuppanna, I think.
No, pachupanna.
Pachupanna, the meaning pachupanna is present
Yeah.
time.
That's the question I asked, because when Lumpu Sumedo says Pachupanna is in the present moment.
Present moment.
But when you say Paticca Sampanna,
That's yeah.
dependent origination. Yes.
Paticca samuppanna.
Paticca samuppanna.
That's why I asked what is the difference
Yeah,
between the
yeah.
three. Yeah. Because
Mm.
Pachupanna means in this moment. This
Yeah,
moment.
present moment.
Yeah.
Mm.
The Pachupanna Dhamma he refers to is always his
Yeah.
talks on the present moment he's telling, nothing
Yeah.
about the past. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
That was my question fully answered.
All right.
Right.
No, the class is not done yet. Did you just come for that? No. Right. Okay. Paticca
Yeah, paticca samuppanna.
samuppanna. Right. So paticca samuppanna, olarika, anicca, sankata, all to do with this specific part. But we are going to delete all of this for now, because that's not what we're talking about. Now, this is sankata, everyone. Is that understood?
Yeah.
Sankata is this formulation, this sense experience. Now look at this. Sankata is this. The passa between the sense organ, object, and consciousness, right, brings about, or through which we create the sense experience. The sense experience is something that we create. How does the we part come here? We part comes here from this position here. Go. From this position here. Sanya, this one here. This is how we construct. Right? This is how we construct. So when a certain phenomena arises in our mind, whether it be pleasant, unpleasant, so by this time, it will take the phase of, when it reaches 2, it will be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Right? Or neutral at the moment of 2. It will be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. It is that which we see as sankata. May there sankata. It is conditioned. It is a construct which arises and passes away, arises and passes away. These pleasant constructs continuously arise and pass away, arise and pass away. It will arise and cease continuously. It is dependent on many other factors, sense organ, sense object, sense consciousness. 3 of those factors there which comes together with passa. What are the other factors? Sanya. In sanya we have habit, the whole of mental conditioning. Right? The whole of mental conditioning. Now let us say, your favorite type of food. Your favorite type of food is brought near you, but you're in the middle of a very, very important meeting, let us say, whilst you're working, right? Now, your friend or your partners, whoever is trying to now, yes, you love this. This is your favorite dish. But this person is trying to now shove it down your throat at this specific time, which is not conducive. Right now, this experience, which in a better circumstance would have been a pleasant experience, turns out to be a rather not so pleasant experience. Right? That experience, right now, the object was there, which was a usually preferred object, but turned into an unpleasant experience because of circumstance. Sankata. Do you understand? Does that make sense? Right? We see that in all of these different parts, right? In all of these different parts, the circumstances, the power of the eyes itself, prasada rupe shaktyak mettanta balapanava. Prasada rupe shaktyak mettanta balapanava. All of that will determine what the sense experience is. That sense experience is usually taken as the gospel truth. We say, no, this is conditioned. This can change. This is dependent upon many other factors. This arises continuously, arises and passes. That is what happens. Is that clear, everyone? That is Sankata. Okay? Any questions?
So Bhante, that means that we who are practitioner people, that Yoniso Manasikara doesn't apply at that point of Sanya, because for us, it's a habit, upbringing, our beliefs and our values. That's the way that we see something. But then, because without just taking that is true, that something is bad or good, we then apply Yoniso Manasikara, and therefore then we at that point, after the sense experience, at that point we apply it, and then therefore you tell this is all Arika and all those things, Sankata, and all that thing.
Not exactly. So the only thing till there we had to correct is,
yes,
with regard to the bad or good, this is not consideration to bad or good.
yes,
This is in concept. What we are discussing here is Indriya Bhavana.
yes.
Right? Indriya Bhavana.
You're
So,
growing something. Bhavana. You're improving something. Growth.
Developing. Right?
Yes.
Developing. Now here, the main thing is not the fact that it is good or bad. It is the fact that we are trying to demystify, right, this illusionary sort of hold, understand that hold that is present. In doing so, to taking away the power that the Indriyas have in controlling the mind and turning the Indriyas into becoming a tool rather than controlling us. Is that clear? Right? So this is not in the fact of this, what the topic of conversation is not in order to think that this is either good or bad. This is simply to realize the whole, the tanha, the way that we grapple onto the data that we hear, smell, taste, feel, through the five senses.
So if we didn't have teachings, and if we hadn't got exposed and haven't done, Dhamma Sravani and practice it, Dhammanupatipada, then that level of Yoniso Manasikara to develop this we won't have. We just absolutely believe that is so.
Exactly. That is why we would be stuck in the cycle of birth and death.
Right. So that is why the Yoniso Manasikara and the development of it, the Bhavana of it, becomes so very important. That's why the Yoniso Manasikara you mentioned today somewhere, that's why Yoniso Manasikara becomes very important.
Not only with regard to this bhavana, but all other bhavanas, right? All other bhavanas, even sila, right? in the Adi Sila, Yonsumatikara is a given component, right? Where, for example, you do not show physical hate, right? Which is by punching someone or hitting someone or throwing something at someone. Neither do you think in such a manner.
Yeah.
What is that?
The
Yonsumatikara.
Mansakara.
Yeah. Okay.
So
But-
where that
Okay.
comes in, sorry, where that comes in is different in those who are on the path who are in one of these stages and in us, because for us, we see it one way and we, depending on habits and things, and then we develop it by this Bhavana, so that
Yeah,
this-
it really
yeah.
depends on the scope by which we are speaking, because some people
Yeah.
are naturally kind.
Yes.
You know, but some people are naturally kind. Some people have very sort of kind, compassionate temperaments. It doesn't, right? And they think well of the world. They think well of people, right? However, Yonsu Mansikara is not just simply thinking well of people. We acknowledge that sometimes people can be evil, right? We acknowledge that this is being in the present and in touch with that reality. You know, it is not to say, because sometimes when we are kind and compassionate, sometimes it is also seen as a certain type of weakness, and people do try to take sort of advantage of something like that, right? Qualities such as that, because people are good, right? But Yonsu Mansikara loves you to also say, no, I've done enough. You're not going to use me. You know, but not in a way that I'm going to be stabbing voodoo dolls in your name.
Yeah.
Right? That is right. Is that understood? So it is not simply, it is the right in the right manner. Yonsu Mansikara takes away that simple burden that we might experience with akusala, right? Or in a way with the Yonsu Mansikara, it takes away that burden. Ayonsu Mansikara builds that burden, right? Builds that burden. It is this manner and way by which we think. Okay. Now, can we go into Olarika? Any other questions?
Thank you,
Damsi, you were going to say something?
Bhante, so in other words, the Indriya Bhavana is just contemplating the process through which we process these objects and then continue to build the Anusaya Dharma and then how to prevent it.
ඒ අරමුණ කෙරෙහි තියෙන රාගය විරාග කරන.
Virag karna. Yeah, that's right. But do you have to think about the Trilakkhana also at the same time?
Trilakkana, as we develop, it will come. That is where Anitya is a
Anitya
main
comes.
aspect.
Okay, all right, okay.
So through Sankata, what we are breaking up is Anatma.
Yeah.
Right? To Anatma. And then, of course, in seeing that attachment that we had, right, we see the dukkha. I think as we progress in the path, we will see Anitya, Dukkha, and Anatma.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Now, now we go on to Olarika, everyone. Right? Now we go on to what is Olarika. Now, Olarika is what? Olarika is what is gross, right? Gross. Now, Olarika, in understanding what Olarika is, we have to realize that it is whether past, present, or future, right? Internal, external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior. Inferior or superior, right? All of these dharmas and phenomena that we experience, right? They are explained. Now, these dharmas, whatever phenomena that we experience, they can be categorized into these parts, right? Now, what is internal? Internal would mean the physical sense organs, right? Physical sense organs. What is external? External would mean the form that impinges upon the physical sense organ, right? The object, the sense, the physical sense object. What is gross? Gross is that which impinges upon the internal, right? Impinges upon the senses. This has to be, right? This has to be touch, earth, wind, fire. Those four, right? They impinge with touch, earth, wind, fire, right? That which impinges. Then what is subtle, sukuma, right? Sukama is that which does not impinge, right? That which does not. Now, this sukuma would always refer to the mind, as they say, the mind. Sukuma would be mind, mind object, mind consciousness, and water. And water. Do I have to explain why water is there? Water is there because, remember, water is experienced through the mind putting together the experience of earth, fire, wind. That is why. The element of water is experienced through the others, isn't it? The other three. Who puts together the other three? The mind. Is that understood, everyone? Is that clear? That is why water element is a subtle object there. Inferior. Inferior means undesirable physical sense objects. Undesirable physical sense objects, right? Which can be, of course, form, smell, it can be any sound, smell, taste, tangibility, touch. That is undesirable. Superior is desirable physical sense objects. Far and near. Far is subtle objects, right? Subtle objects, which are far means difficult to penetrate, difficult to understand them. Gross objects or near. Near is gross object. So we have internal, external, internal, external, gross, subtle, inferior, superior, far, and near. Right? Far and near. Far is difficult to penetrate. Near is gross object. It's easier to penetrate. Right? Penetrate. Now, when it comes to the Indriya Bhavana, the two main things that we have to keep in mind is gross, olarika, and sukuma, subtle, right? Subtle. The gross refers to, of course, the nature of the five physical senses. The nature of the five physical senses. Sukuma refers to the nature of the mind, right? Sukuma refers to the nature of the mind. Sukuma refers to the nature of the mind. When we observe an olarika characteristic, we know that this olarika characteristic, this gross characteristic that we are experiencing, is a physical is a physical internal or external sense, right? Is a physical, internal or external sense, right? It is experience with touch, wind, fire, earth. These are olarika. Olarika, why? Because they are in a sense, they can be divisible into being inferior, superior, far, near, internal, external. They are dependent upon other factors again. They are constructed, right, through conditionality, right? They are physical, so they are due to change. Do you understand, everyone? They are due to change very easily. Hence, they are olarika, right? Hence, they are olarika. Now, hence they are olarika. Now, it is 8:30.
Bhante, can you please explain? You said far and near. What's the difference? I couldn't quite hear that.
Far and near is subtle objects, right?
Difficult to understand.
Yeah, difficult to paint, meaning when an object is not clear, when it is obscure, right? You can't understand it, right?
So if it's near, it's easy to penetrate.
And when the object is gross, now let us say, Dil,
Yeah.
from afar, you look out from your window and you see a tree at far. The tree from a distance looks quite beautiful. It looks quite nice. You go closer to the tree, and there are now, you first thought that it was a nice, sort of beautiful looking tree, no? Right? When you go near it, now you see that it is infested by some sort of what is it? Some sort of you know what I mean, right? The trees there are, there are insects, there are, all of these sort of things that are considered calamities in trees, right? It's not so nice when you see from far, you didn't know that much about it, so there was nothing for you to sort of work out about it. You see, that looks like a nice sort of, healthy looking tree. It might be a Bodhi tree, let us say, because it's basically one of the main trees I know how to call by name. But how embarrassing. Now you go near it, and because now when you go near it, you can see so many aspects of that same tree. It's not the same. The tree, because you now the tree has become a gross object. What happens? That initial concept of the tree can change in so many ways. Do you understand? Right? Now you look at let us say you look at something from Amazon, right? Something that you've not ordered before, and then you order this, right? When it gets, now, when you looked at the images and all of that, you were quite happy with it, right? Now when it got home, right, now you see the difference. Before, the object, the amount of information, data you had regarding the object was obscure, hence nothing much could have gone wrong to persuade you otherwise from the initial concept of what you had. Now, being a gross object, so many things can go wrong, right? If it is an article of clothing, the feel of the clothing, how it does in the wash, whether the color, whether it stains, whether the color, all of these things, get what I mean, right? Whether it is hot, whether it is cold, how it feels on the skin, all of these things can come into question. Now, to determine whether an article of clothing, when you have it in your hand, is good or bad, is of good quality or bad quality, Is that clear? Far or near? Yeah. Is that clear, Dil? I hope so. Right. Now, the next part, right, for next week, we will do the remainder of what we have to do, which is, of course, a little bit on Olarika and to go into Pachupanna and Anicca. Okay? Paticcasamuppanna and Anicca. Paticcasamuppanna and Anicca. Right. Then, everyone, I'm going to ask
you,
a
Bhante.
little bit of a break tomorrow for the morning meditation, right? Today I just had this really bad sort of, it was all phlegmy. I had to like get up and go skiing because it was so bad. But so let me just have a break, but continue your meditation, please. Right. And I also realized that your counting went up today. And is that because you were counting in the morning without ending it at 9 o'clock? Because we've been trying to reach this goal of 1,000 counts, right? 1,000 counts, and today it has somehow, I see that some of you have sort of gone up. So what is the reason that these counts are not? What is the reason that these counts are not going up? What's happening to everyone? Why are we not reaching 1,000 after doing this for so long? What's happening? Hello?
Bhante, for me, the main one is actually, in order to do 1,000, you need at least 3 hours of meditation, Indriya Bhavana meditation. So sometimes other the work involved, the household work involved actually prevent us from sitting for 3 hours.
Yes, but with Buddhanusati, I did not ask you to sit, no. But how is it that you all are doing it? Is it not happening?
Yeah, but you can't do it when you're driving. So I am the one who is driving. Mala can sit and do, and that's why she has got so much higher number when compared to me.
Oh yes, today there's a 200.
Yeah.
So maybe you can claim some of her points.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuses.
Hmm?
Excuses, I said.
What about what is your count today, Devika?
Mine is bad, Bhante.
Why is that? So we have to, the thing is, the count, now you don't have to base,
I have 100.
yeah, you don't have to, so 100 is quite weak, right?
Yes,
Quite
I
weak.
know.
So, so the thing is like, you have to, even in the middle of like, if you're having that device in your hand, right? And even whilst you're driving, it is not the fact that you had to constantly just do that, right? But even if you can get a few in whilst in the process of driving, making that the habit, right? That needs to happen, right? That needs to happen, and that can happen. Hey, Mali, what's going on with you? I know you are stressed out with going to Sri Lanka these days, aren't you?
No,
Yes.
but while walking, I can do. I'm doing on while walking and then sitting
Mm.
and traveling by bus or something.
Yeah.
That's the only time I do.
Okay.
Now when I am do some other work, I am not used to do Buddha Anusati.
Okay. Okay. What? Okay. So then, we have to, so that is, so then we will know when you have the high Buddhanusati count, you have actually traveled around and walked around a lot and you've been having
Yeah.
an active day. Yeah? All right, everyone. But let us.
Bhante, what I do is I try to concentrate on Buddha's qualities while I'm counting. So my main goal is not the numbers. While driving is easy for me. I sit and then think of Buddha's statue, think of my in the room and then do it. But
Yeah.
what I think is the quality. You have to think of the quality rather than muttering just the gatha, isn't it?
Yeah. Muttering Gata.
No, what I mean is you can just keep on saying, but you have to think of the qualities of Buddha.
So this has turned into muttering meditation. Right. Well, the thing is, as we sort of the physical exercise of it is like this, right? When you're running, the preparation, the mental preparation to run will not exceed itself if the physical running does not happen, right? In the same manner, with regards to the Buddhanusati, when you do commit to doing it actually, right, you will find that the mind will also become far better at contemplating it, right? That is something that we practically do come to notice, right? It is as if now physically sitting has a bearing on the quality of meditation.
Yes.
Has a bearing on the quality of meditation. The more that you are able to sit, you will uncover more deeper insights with regards to your meditation, right? However much certain practitioners would say the sitting is not so important, when you go to the most serious of meditation centers, you would always find that sitting is important, especially when it comes to the Buddhist monks monasteries. I mean, which Buddhist monastery does not sort of prioritize sitting? All monasteries that are strict, they prioritize sitting, right? The physical saying of it will contribute a lot towards the actual development of the mind with regards to the Buddhanusati, right? It does help a lot. So that is why in the beginning, although when we do start, that is why in the beginning, when we did start, I said, prioritize the numbers over the quality of your contemplation. I said actually the other way around, isn't it? Right. And we went over it a couple of times as well. Right. Because we are not doing this to cultivate a sense of piety per se. We are doing it to bring our minds towards, of course, Buddhanusati Vishraddha. However, to advert the mind to a kusala aramanu again and again and again and again and again. The repetitive adverting of the mind, that is what we are doing. And that is why I said earlier when we first started, focus on the numbers and not on the quality of it. Because the quality will come. It is like you sort of doing the knitting, you see. When you first start knitting, it will not look as nice. But when you sort of get at it, do it. But if you're going to, at the first instance, if you're going to focus on correcting everything, you will take a hell of a long time to actually get good at it. So what do you do in the first instance? You choose a small shape, you start knitting and you go on, although it doesn't look that good, right? And then it now becomes habit. Yeah, that is what it is. So with Buddhanussati, you do not specifically have to be doing it in a sitting posture, right? You do not have to be doing it in a sitting posture, but what you need is that machine in your hand, and you trying to get it in, getting the repetitions in at whatever point, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, everyone. Take care, and I will see you on Sunday. Take care, everyone. Here on Sunday.
Yeah.
Sirasana
Everyone,
Namaste.